Hey everyone, this is Nitro. For this part 4 of interesting Apex Arena matches, I thought I would go over two of the most interesting battles I've seen yet. Okay, now, of course, they were very interesting battles previously, like for example the battle against the Fair Kia Meteor team and Pierre, but these two were also incredibly interesting as well. So the first battle will be a battle from me, and it will be a battle against Lord Rupert. This battle is very, very interesting because there was a ridiculous amount of flip-flop. That is, it kept going back and forth where one player would have the advantage, then the other player would have the advantage. And it flipped back and forth over and over again until the very end. Mistakes were definitely made on both sides, but it was an incredible demonstration of all sorts of different aspects of this game. So that was the first battle. The second battle will actually not be from me. It'll be from one of my guildmates. But I'll go over that after covering this first fight. So let's just jump in and go over this battle. So, I'm player 1, Lord Rupert's player 2, and I initially get Zerda banned. Looking at this, I actually made a mistake. I quickly took a look and I actually thought my opponent only had 3 healers, but he actually had 4. Right? He has Liana, Tiaris, Iris, and Wyler, just like me. But somehow I completely missed Wyler here. I thought there were just 3 healers, so I went for a healer banning strategy and just started with Iris. And I played my Landius. So my opponent bans, after Zerda, Listel, and Yulia, getting rid of 3 of the most commonly banned attackers. And my opponent plays Juggler rather than Landius as his tank. Right? Makes sense for this map especially, the Gemini Bridge inverse wave with water along the middle. So he did a pretty good choice. So since I thought he had no tank, since I thought he had no healers, I continued to ban healers, so I removed Liana and Tiaris here. And I played my Luna to start. So, opponent now bans my Elwyn and Omega, right? Eliminating my characters, both my characters who can remove buffs from Juggler. And plays Wyler, the only remaining healer. So at this point, I ban Zerda and Hiei. And on my side, I now play Juggler, a second tank. So double tank with Luna's strategy. So next, opponent bans my Leonhard and Bozel and plays Yulia. Makes a lot of sense, right? Can Godly Menace, can, just all sorts of crazy powerful skills. So now I ban the enemy Luna and Bozel, right? Wind God Realm and AoE debuffing, and I now choose to play Tiaris, right? Healing between battles. So, enemy now bans my Iris and Liana, and chooses to play Leonhard. So at this point, I have a choice between Shafaniel and Wyler, and both picks were viable. I actually really struggled to decide who to actually play here, because Juggler can faction buff up Luna and Tiaris, right? Landius can faction buff up both of these characters, so faction buff wise I'm fine either way. So if I play Shafaniel, Shafaniel though can be played to faction buff up Tiaris and Luna, and then I could have had Juggler bring Beast Shock rather than a faction buff. Wyler of course offers a lot of healing and so on, and ultimately, looking at this in hindsight, I think Shafaniel probably would have been the better option, right? An AoE attacker and debuff and buff removal character, right, against Juggler. And she can even use Cleanse to single target strike Juggler, right? And then she can also faction buff up Luna and Tiaris, and then I could have Juggler bring Beast Shock. Right? That would have been probably the better choice then. But I ended up picking Wyler. So first I played Landius and Yusuke, and I played Wyler. And then my opponent, I think that actually, looking at this, I'm pretty sure the reason I chose Wyler was because I was worried about Joshua, right? if Joshua launches a his line attack at extreme range or phantom raid, I felt that I needed 2 healers to heal up that attack and provide healing for other attacks. But then again, looking at this in hindsight, TRS has Healing Light. You can heal up from Healing Light anyways. So regardless, I made my choice, and my opponent finally plays Sigma instead of Joshua, which is a bit of a surprise to me. So let's jump in and go over some of the skills beforehand. First of all, I made a mistake. I was setting up all my other characters, and especially like Weiler's skills, which ones to bring. And then finally, I made a mistake with Juggler. I forgot to bring his faction buff rather than B-Shock. So as a result, both Luna and Tierras didn't have a faction buff for this fight, which definitely caused me issues. As for Weiler, I ended up deciding to bring Tactical Retreat, Mass Heal, and Dispel. The reason for... Now, Dispel could have been something else for sure, but I just wasn't sure, ultimately, which skill to bring. So Dispel was probably a bad choice. Mass Heal and Tactical Retreat were absolute musts, but Dispel could have been replaced with something else. Maybe Regroup, you know. Regardless, that was the skills I chose on my Wilder. And as I mentioned, I have no faction buff, which really hurt. As for my opponent, well, Leonhard, interestingly enough, chose to bring Air Slash rather than the stunning line attack. And Sigma also chose interesting skills: Ranger's Heart, Roundabout, and Strong Wind Snipe. So with this setup, Ranger's Heart can constantly refresh to allow Roundabout to keep kicking in. Finally, Wilder had Shrine Maidens as the soldiers and is bringing Mass Attack, Tactical Retreat, and Mass Heal. So that way, Wilder can buff up both Yulia and Sigma, right? With the Mass Attack. And Juggler, of course, Triton, Mark of the Sacred Beast, and B-Shock. No Great Dragon Barrier for him. I think the most questionable part of his build was probably Juggler. But yeah. So overall, this was the selections for both sides, and let's begin the battle. On my side, of course, what was fatal was, well, what was really costly was not bringing the faction buff on Juggler. But the other thing I think that really... But other than that, I think overall, my skill selection was okay. Oh, there is one other thing that I felt he really made a massive mistake on, and that's Sigma. He brought cyborg vessels for his soldiers. The problem with cyborg's vessels is that they're infantry soldiers. So if infantry soldiers has to attack Landius, they suck, right? They're not going to do much damage to cavalry. So that was probably his fatal mistake. If he had replaced these cyborg soldiers with an actual ranged soldier, you know, whatever ranged soldier Sigma has, he would have been a lot better off, at least doing much more damage to me than he would with those cyborg vessels. Alright, so long chat, let's begin. Initially, I move up, start tritening up, and he pretty much does the same thing, shift forward, Mark of the Sacred Beast. So I'm moving up on his side, you know, buffing up on my side, and he now instant transfers Leonhard forward right away. And I just start with an attack blessing casted on Luna. Meanwhile, he uses mass attack on his other characters. So this is where I probably make a bit of a mistake. First, I don't have Landius activate his guard skill, just shifted him forward one. And the mistake was probably this move by Wilder. Leonhard comes charging forward, does his AoE attack, and then does a second AoE. And the reason I say this was a mistake was because I didn't expect this, but this Leonhard has the Demon Slayer weapon, right? Well, because of that weapon, I got a whole bunch of buffs removed. Right? So Luna's attack blessing has been eliminated. Weiler lost basically his whole faction buff. And Juggler lost 2 buffs. Right? Those 2 buffs would have been lost from the Fusion Dark Emperor Sword, dispelling 2 buffs. I did get lucky, right? Juggler kept his guard skill buff as well as his passable terrain is water buff. So in other words, he could still guard Weiler. If I didn't move Weiler up, I would have been fine. But because I moved Weiler up, this became dangerous. In any case though, after that, Leonhard then launches Air Slash on my Juggler. And because I kept my guard buffs, Juggler was fine. He lost yet another buff after that, but he still has 3 buffs in total. So very luck-based element there. Depending on which buffs Leonhard removed, I could have been completely screwed. But fortunately, Juggler managed to keep his tanking buffs. Alright. Otherwise, well, Weiler would have been dead turn 1. So that was a luck element on my part, which gave me an advantage, I suppose. So now though, I begin by casting Miracle. And Weiler now uses Tactical Retreat and pulls Leonhard to safety, just like that. So I can't kill him off. In the first place though, I had no ability to kill off this Leonhard because Luna, after getting debuffed by cannot receive act again effects, if she had used Wind God Realm, she would have ended her turn. So I had no way to kill Leonhard anyways. So then, regardless, I just start moving forward and I Wind God Realm up my Luna. So Sigma comes up, attacks my Juggler. Doesn't really do much because of Healing Light. Although you can see Juggler took quite a bit of damage actually. So now, I start with a mass heal from Weiler, and Yulia comes charging forward, using Holy Justice to rip my Juggler apart. The main thing about Holy Justice is it removed a lot of the buffs on my Juggler, right? So he lost his being in water buff, for example, and so on. So now Juggler really has barely any buffs. And for now, I decide to send Landius charging forward and Tranquility to guard. Well, Sigma activates Ranger's Heart here, and then launches an extreme range attack with Strong Wind Snipe to hit my Juggler and one-shot him. Or finish him off. Right? So down goes my Juggler. Advantage, Lord Rupert. So I now have my Luna, Raging Thunder, this Yulia. Now the interesting thing here is Wind God Realm remains on Luna. Okay? The reason for that is because of the cannot receive act again effect, right? So because that forcibly ended my turn before I could move, Wind God Realm actually ended up lasting 2 turns rather than just 1. Okay? So it's still available as a result. Right? Because I Wind God Realm last turn, turn was force ended. This turn I was able to attack and Wind God Realm remains. So Leonhard's Fusion Dark Emperor Sword kept my Wind God Realm active. Juggler comes charging forward to use Beast Shock, which doesn't do much damage to my Landius due to the Royal Cavalry, but this Juggler has Spirit Boots. So, with the Spirit Boots, he was able to attack and move 2 tiles forward to apply the cannot move and cannot be guarded effect on my Landius. So now, this allows Leonhard to melee attack my Luna, but because Leonhard has no skills at this point, Luna doesn't die. And Weiler, since Weiler has 1181 int, my Luna has 1103 magic defense. No way that Weiler can kill off Luna. So he doesn't try, he just chooses to mass heal. And this is where it gets interesting. Because Luna kept her Wind God Realm, you know, Juggler's Beast Shock is supposed to render you unable to move and cannot guard. But due to Wind God Realm, Landius can move 2 tiles. So I move my Landius back, and Luna is in guard range. My opponent reactivates Leonhard's teleportation, and I take the opportunity to heal up my Landius to pretty much full. Sigma attacks does basically no damage whatsoever to the Royal Cavalry. And now I tactical retreat to pull my characters to safety. And finally, I have Luna attack Leonhard, but Leonhard survives with 36-39 hit points. Okay. In large part, this is also because my Luna does not have a faction buff up, right? That mistake with Juggler's skill selection is really hurting me here. Okay. So Leonhard lives. But what happens is Wilder has to move first, and Wilder uses mass attack. Well, I get to act now. Okay. Now he also made a bit of a mistake here with Wilder's mass attack. Should have targeted Juggler instead of Sigma. Then Leonhard should have gotten buffed from the mass attack as well. Regardless, right? Leonhard 36-39 hit points. I look at it, and what I thought was, hey, Tiaris does magic damage. Pretty sure Tiaris' magic damage can do enough damage to kill off a Leonhard with this measly amount of hit points. So she attacks, but Aeolus' battle armor kicked in and kept this Leonhard alive. Of course, once again, this is also because my Juggler did not have his faction buff, causing me both of Luna and Tiaris to do much less damage than they should have. So Leonhard lives, and Leonhard has Goddess's Left Hand debuff applied to him. But Wilder is able to mass heal and remove that debuff. So I had to choose who dies, right? It was either Tiaris dies or Luna dies. And I chose to keep Luna alive. So Leonhard gets to AoE, and then single target strike my Tiaris, finishing her off. So now advantage has been lost on my side. Now it's advantage Lord Rupert. Big advantage to Lord Rupert too, I should say. Alright. So Triton comes in from Juggler. Right? So I got lucky early, now he got lucky with the Aeolus' battle armor. Right? Keeping Leonhard alive. And I'm kind of in trouble. So for now, I'm kind of setting up, doing what I can. Landius continues to take no damage because of Healing Light for now. But now that Tiaris is dead, this Healing Light will be gone soon. So I move Landius forward in Tranquility, and it's gone. Just like that. He continues to buff up. And here, I choose to have Wilder, range attack, Juggler. Okay? And apply Mobility debuff on Juggler. Well, at this point, he's already used his mass heal last turn, so this Mobility debuff is in play. And then Sigma continues to range attack, right? Trying to weaken my Landius, but once again, with the Cyborg infantry doing nothing. And I now have Luna charge forward to try to kill Leonhard once again. Doesn't do it so, but he chose to melee attack with his Leonhard and suicided him. Bonus, right? So maybe he thought that it would be both they kill each other, but the actual result was my Luna lived when he attacked. So now it's 3-on-3. So shifting forward, Landius to guard my characters. His Wilder attacks, doesn't really do all that much, right? I choose to mass heal to try to recover a bit, and Luna just moves up a bit to buff up my Landius. Alright. So this is where battle's nearly over. This is where it gets interesting. I have Wyler attack Juggler from poison. And I may have rushed this, to be fair. The reason for this attack was to apply this mobility debuff on Juggler and so on, which I actually did rush this. Looking at this in hindsight now, I should have waited till a few turns later to do that. In any case though, I attack like that, and Lord Rupert decides to mass heal to remove that. This is his fatal mistake. Okay. I made a mistake, but he made a mistake that went along with me. By mass healing, instead of having Juggler activate Triton, Juggler is now vulnerable to my attack. So, I have Luna, Wind God Realm, and Raging Thunder on Juggler. Since Juggler did not have Triton active, Juggler nearly dies from the single strike. And at this point, he now activates Triton, but it's too late. Basically, all the lobsters are dead. And so, I can have Landius melee attack Juggler and finish him off. So, now, what I should have done, to be fair, was this turn, I indeed should have had Wyler attack initially, but I should not have suicided him just yet. Should have waited till next turn before the suicide, if anything. Okay. After the enemy Wyler no longer had mass heal. In any case though, this did pay off, and now Sigma launches his attack, but Desperate Prayer keeps me alive. He no longer has a tank, so Lord Rupert retreats. Yeah. Really, if he had activated Triton first, rather than having Wyler activate his mass heal, he would have beat me there, for sure, guaranteed. But of course, a lot of the things went back and forth, you know. So this battle I felt was super interesting because of how many different effects came into play this fight, right? First of all, it showed that proper skill selection is key. You know, I would not have struggled so much if my Juggler had brought in his faction buff instead of Beast Shock. You know, it showed me using, you know, Wyler's Suicide to activate Desperate Prayer, right? In fact, actually, at the end, if he had suicided his Wyler to activate Desperate Prayer, instead of using Mass Heal, I would have probably been in a lot more trouble too, right? Because with Desperate Prayer, since the enemy Juggler would have healed before combat, I would not have been able to kill the enemy Juggler either. So that fight just now just showed so many different effects coming into play. You know, Wyler, suicidal options, stuff like that, that it was just an amazing battle. And of course, gear selection, like me actually having Goddess's left hand on Wyler for the chance to reduce enemies' mobility, that was absolutely clutch for my success. If I was not able to deactivate his guard skill, would have been a totally different battle. And yeah, so, and then of course, you know, the interaction between using the skills at the right times, especially Leonhard with the Fusion Dark Emperor Sword, or my Luna with her Wind God Realm lasting that extra turn, you know, all of these different things were it just led to a very complex and interesting battle overall, right? So there we have it. That first battle just had so many elements to it. So for the second battle, I wanted to cover one of my guildmates' battles instead. And the battle I'm going to cover is actually ZHPH's fight. So ZHPH, I did coverage of his Season 1 Apex team, right? With Emmerich and the really off meta build, which he actually used to get into the top 16 in Season 1. So if I take a look at his name card, for example, and Apex of Glory, we see that in Season 1, he was actually top 16. Right? He didn't play in Season 2, I think he was too busy in real life, but Season 3, he's now currently in Gold 2. So 1747 points, very similar to where I was at actually, at the start of this week. And the build I wanted to cover the battle I wanted to cover was this one. So where he was playing a gold 3 match, which he won. And to be fair, he won partially because Spartacus made mistakes, but it's one of those battles where he had to play perfectly to win, while his opponent had basically a superior meta box. So let's begin. So taking a look, right, ZHPH continues to have a very off meta box overall, because he went Strategist, Empire Strategist Dark, right? So we take a look here, we see that there's Emmerich in his party, Vargas in his party, Ulte Muller in his party, Bernhard in his party, right? Leon in his party. All of these are basically off meta characters. The rest are meta characters, but there's a significant portion that are off meta. By comparison, his opponent Spartacus really has a meta build. Or, of course, DiHarto is technically not meta, but he is an assassin character. So he can ignore guard and so on. So in some ways you can say he is meta. But in any case though, let's begin the pick ban phase. So Listel ban and Listel ban on both sides. ZHPH plays Juggler and gets Bozel and Yulia banned, which is kind of interesting. Yulia doesn't particularly have a faction buff here from what I can tell, except for Luna. So I'm kind of surprised that Yulia was an early ban. But in any case, both sides play Juggler. And now ZHPH bans Elwin and Yulia. So, and ZHPH plays Emmerich. Right? Now, we know he got into top 16 with Emmerich, so this is clearly going to be another Emmerich demonstration battle. So now he loses Liana and Iris. Right? The enemy plays Hiei. And Liana and Joshua are now banned. Right? Faction buff for Hiei, of course. ZHPH plays Tiaris. So, he now loses Zerida and Luna. And the opponent gets Zerida. Uh-oh. Trouble here. So, 2 assassins, right? And I think Hiei is Meteor as well, so he is faction buffed anyways. So now, Tiaris and Leonhard is banned from Spartacus. And ZHPH plays a 3rd tank, Vargas. So there's Juggler, Emmerich, and Vargas now. ZHPH loses Bernhard and Leon. And then Spartacus gets Iris to teleport the characters forward. Right? And finally, Luna and DiHarto are banned, while ZHPH plays Weiler instead of Ulte Muller. So the end result is Emmerich and Vargas don't have a faction buff. Looking at this. Right. Juggler can faction buff up Tiaris potentially, and Weiler can, provide mass attack and that kind of stuff, but there is no faction buff on ZHPH's side for Emmerich and Vargas. And finally, Spartacus plays a 2nd tank rather than Chloe, so Landius. So let's jump in. And I'm going to pause it here. So, the crazy thing about ZHPH's party though is the raw stats on his characters. For example, look at this Vargas defense. 1033 base defense without a faction buff, right? It's insane. And then Juggler brings mostly what I expected, Triton, faction buff, and B-Shock, right? Emmerich here is actually not a tank. He is a route, onrush, and move a game character here. So he used to be a tank, now he's not. And he's bringing Angels rather than Royal Cavalry. That's a bit of a surprise to me, given that the opponent has no magic attacker except for Iris, right? I would have thought that Royal Cavalry would be the better option over Angels, but regardless. Finally, last 2 characters, right? Weiler is bringing Strengthen, Master, and Tactical Retreat, while Tiaris is bringing Miracle, Heal, and Shield. So Shield, I guess, will be used on Vargas to buff up his defense even further. And let's just begin taking a look at what happens at the start. So, faction buff, right? ZHPH is player 1, but he has to play defensive against the offensive team of Spartacus. So, Unbreakable Guardian is used with Vargas. Attack is now raised to 1653. And Wilder does an extreme range strengthen because this to be able to strengthen at that distance, support skill range is increased by 2. So this should be a 6-star Wilder, right? And then finally, Zero that moves up, faction buffs. Yes, Hiei is Meteor. And finally, TRS casts his shield on Vargas. So let's take a look at how much defense he has now in attack. 1182 and 1891. So ridiculously high. So the interesting thing here as well is Spartacus has an all physical attack team except for his healer, which means these guys really would struggle like mad to do damage to Vargas in general, right? Considering his extreme defense. So Spartacus is gonna have some problems taking out this Vargas. Although once the healers are dead, you can slowly weaken down this Vargas at that point. In any case though. So Le Jardin de Iris teleports CA forward a bit in preparation for the attack next turn, presumably. For now, Spartacus continues to activate skills, and really there is no rush for him to push in. Right? He has the massive mobility advantage, so he might as well get all his skills up and running before he engages. Okay. And he's gone for it. So the transformation skill of Hiei is used, and then he uses the attack skill, which I felt was probably a mistake, right? It was Fist. Which one did he use? Did he use Fists of Mortal Flame or? Let me just go back there because I'm slightly confused. And let's take a look again. The icon looks like Fists of Mortal Flame, but it didn't debuff. Interesting. Right? All damage increased by 15%, right? And any healing received is converted into damage. It didn't apply that debuff though. I wonder why. Is it because of this? Immune to defense and magic defense reduction and healing reduction effects? That might have been it. So it's good to see that Shield actually protects against Hiei's reversal skill. Okay. So let's continue. Zerda starts moving forward. Weiler does a mass heal from extreme range. And Dolly is used to teleport Iris forward to heal up Hiei. So here, Juggler with Beast Shock attempts to take on Vargas and does barely any damage. It's really crazy just how tough this Vargas is. But it's also because this Juggler actually doesn't have that much attack. 1585 is not a high attack Juggler. Generally speaking, when you attack with Juggler, it should be like over 2000. So that's probably why. Alright. So, Hiei runs forward and attacks with Sword of Darkness Flame. And that was a bit iffy because why would you waste your ignore guard skill like that? In my opinion anyways. So regardless though, he gets to act again. And he goes after Tieris, melee attack, and crushes him. And this is where he made a mistake. Okay. He tried to move Hiei out of range of this 4 movement Vargas. But the problem is, after 2 turns, Hiei stuns himself. So what this means is next turn, the line he's currently in is going to be poison. So this Hiei kills himself. So this was pretty much a fatal mistake. He lost Hiei for nothing. Juggler strikes. Juggler. And ZHPH's Juggler is significantly better, as we see here. 2110 attack, as opposed to 1585. So, this is, I guess, a clear example of the enchant difference. Okay. There's no other explanation for this, other than that Spartacus's Juggler has terrible enchants, or is very low star level, which is the case because he's only recovering 15% as opposed to 30%. So this is a low star level Juggler. Alright, moving on. So Iris heals up Juggler a bit. Vargas max this Juggler, doing a good amount of damage. And then Zerda runs up. And the interesting thing there is, this Zerda was able to move up and still activate the additional mobility effect because of B-Shock, right? So this Juggler's movement was reduced to 0, allowing this Juggler to charge forward to be able to maneuver to attack. Waller tactical retreats this Vargas back and activates Unbreakable Guardian. Zerda takes out Wilder now, which is actually not a huge deal since Desperate Player. This is a 6-star Wilder, so Desperate Player actually lasts for 3 turns. So now this is the critical move from ZHPH. It's actually 5v3 right now, but because Spartacus suicided Hiei, it's actually 4v3. But with Emmerich charging forward like this, he is now applying his talent mobility debuff on these enemies. So Zerida's mobility, as we see here, gets -2 mobility, so she's down to 1 mobility. Well, she's down to 0 right now because of B-Shock, but she can only move 1 tile now. Well, the problem with that is this city wall tile, 1 mobility is not enough to move into it. So Zerda can't move. At all. So ZHPH taking full advantage of the terrain. Triton's activated on both sides, right? So it's almost like a stalemate right now. ZHPH will kind of attack, but he has the Zerda locked down, which is the main goal of all this. And neither side can really move that well right now. No. Iris could move back, but this Zerda totally stuck. Spartacus activating guard skills. And ZHPH continuing to try to attack. I mean, there's no reason not to, so... Activating skills. Healing. Well, Dolly for healing, I should say. And then Emmerich also joins the fight because, well, if you have Desperate Prayer, why wouldn't you? And Emmerich uses Rout there, which stunned the opponent Juggler. So, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, I feel. And this Zerda continues to be unable to move. So Emmerich is moved forward, like so. And the reason for this move, actually, is because ZHPH gets to act first. So, with being able to move first, Emmerich is positioned here within 2 blocks of Zerda again, and now Zerda can't move. And she's stuck in Poison Fog, meaning she dies. So, didn't have to fight her, and she's still dead. Now, that is where, in my opinion, Spartacus made another fatal error. Instead of attacking there, Spartacus should have sent Iris into the tile that Vargas went onto. Just moving back, right? Because if he had positioned Iris here, then Vargas would have been stuck, right? Of course, the danger there is because Vargas would have had to move into poison and kill himself with that move. So that was, in my opinion, another fatal mistake on Spartacus' side. But so because of that mistake, Vargas was able to safely move into the safe terrain. And we see here that ZHPH continues to move characters in. Battle continues, and now let me just go back here. That was another massive mistake on Spartacus' side, right? Because he had the opportunity to move his juggler, and then for whatever reason he chose not to move this juggler into safety. Right? He could have gotten her into safety there, but instead he chose to B-Shock suicide his juggler. So it was just a very odd choice there. So now that was another questionable move in my opinion on ZHPH's side this time around, because let me just go back there. Oh, I'm just wondering if he had moved. No, I think yeah. This is another questionable move because I really felt that ZHPX should have moved Juggler here into this tile. Then this Landius can't get anywhere, right? This Landius would have had to burn in poison as well. Regardless though, this Landius gets to safety now, and Juggler uses B-Shock to crush Iris instead. Because, remember, Emmerich's talent doesn't just reduce mobility, it applies cannot guard on the enemies. So maybe ZHP was just confident at this point, right? 3v2, he was, and no ability for Landius to guard. So maybe he was just confident that he didn't need to block this Landius from getting out of the poison. In any case though, at this point, it's literally just mop up for ZHPH now. Landius without a healer is not scary. And actually, Emmerich uses Rout to knock that Emmerich out of the safe zone and into the poison. So, since it's stunned, right, he burns down the first time, and then at this point, Spartacus retreats. So, Spartacus had the superior party overall, for sure. But because of various mistakes Spartacus made, ZHPH was able to come out on top. And of course, ZHPH had to play perfectly with that Emmerich and so on to actually win the fight. But definitely, Spartacus completely underestimated the power of Emmerich. And that is a huge part of why ZHPH won. So, thanks for watching everyone! I hope you found this video useful. I'm only covering 2 battles in this video because both battles needed a very long analysis because there were so many elements in play. So, on that note, Nitro out.